Very often what you see between people with different mindsets is the reaction that happens when things go wrong is radically different. So people with a fixed mindset tend to have a much stronger outpouring of emotional reaction and take it much more personally. People with a growth mindset start to look for learning out of it.
The question is, from Thinking Focus.
So the question is, what is the value of a growth mindset to businesses? Hello, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Paul from Thinking Focus.
The question is, from Thinking Focus, a podcast about how we sometimes get in our own way and what we can do about it.
That's a really interesting question. I'm going to sidestep it first and go slightly different, because one of the things I get asked a lot is, should everybody have a growth mindset? And I think if you think about, firstly, what is a growth mindset?
I think that's the best place to start, what is it?
So this idea of mindset comes from some work from the psychologist Carol Dweck, who talks about the fact that most people predominantly approach the world with one of two mindsets. A growth mindset, where you see the world as being abundant, where you see things that happen to you as being abilities to learn and feedback and grow from, growth mindset, and a fixed mindset, which is more about scarcity. So taking a really easy example, some people see relationships as being fixed, and if somebody does something to you you don't quite like, that's a reflection on you and your personality and your characters. And on the other hand, somebody might see a relationship as being through a growth lens, where if something happens to you, that might be feedback that you can use to become better at relationships or to grow within it. Very often what you see between people with different mindsets is the reaction that happens when things go wrong is radically different. So people with a fixed mindset tend to have a much stronger outpouring of emotional reaction and take it much more personally. People with a growth mindset start to look for learning out of it. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt any less, by the way. So actually, something happens to you and you take it with a growth mindset, it still hurts. You lose your job and you have a growth mindset, you've still lost your job. It's still painful, it's still an experience. But actually, you don't look at it as being a defining moment for you. You look at it as being a learning or a growth moment for you.
So you're looking at that very much with an opportunistic approach.
Exactly.
So when in either a fixed or a growth mindset, is that the way I am all the time, or is it situational?
I think it's situational, and I think we have a bit of each all the time. Again, a classic example here, chances are if you go to a restaurant tonight, you're probably not going to approach it with a completely growth mindset. Sometimes you do, sometimes you go, I've never heard of that dish before and I'm going to have it. But you're probably not going to walk in and go, do you know what, yesterday I hated broccoli, let's order the broccoli. So for a certain extent, a fixed mindset is a convenient way round some of the things we do. In a business scenario, one of the jokes I've made with clients recently is that, you probably don't want all your people having a growth mindset about your health and safety process. You want people to look at it as that's the way it is. And when things go wrong, that's a bad thing for us. Let's just sort it out. Let's not sit and have a conversation about how we might learn from this.
Let's fix the issue.
Yeah.
And when the issue's resolved, we might want to think about, right, okay.
Yeah, but you might not want everybody thinking about that. You might want a certain group of people having a growth mindset to your health and safety policy, and your shop floor having a very fixed mindset, black and white mindset of that's what it is and that's how we operate. But I think, to a certain extent, if you look at where businesses are in a sort of 21st century modern economy, actually things aren't fixed. Things are changing all the time. So if you're looking at most of the stuff that's going on in your business or in your environment through this fixed lens, firstly, every time something happens that isn't what you planned or expected, you're going to have this strong adverse emotional reaction. And secondly, you're not going to grow from it. You're going to see it as being caused by external factors. So if you're in a sales environment, you're not going to go, right, how can I position this product differently next time? You're going to go, oh, our product's rubbish. Or that client's rubbish. Or, so actually, how are you going to get any better at selling it? You're not. And now if your competitors are getting better at selling it, if they are learning with the market and growing with the market, and you are not, eventually, you're just going to get left behind. So it's not, is it better for you as a business? I'd pose the question slightly differently. Can you afford not to have it in a 21st century economy? Can you afford to be sitting there going, the world is fixed and the way I believe everything should be is the way it's going to be forever?
So if you were to list, say, the top 3 benefits then of a growth mindset to businesses, what would you see those top 3 being?
Well, I think the biggest one is the ability to learn from failure. So it's the ability to actually accept that things are never going to be perfect, things are never always going to go your way, and that's okay because you can look at everything that happens and see it as an opportunity to grow and develop.
Okay.
So as an organisation, as a set of individuals within that organisation, you have a learning, growing group of people that move your organisation forward, which for me means that you can deal with whatever tomorrows are going to bring you.
But it's not a group that's going to beat themselves up
No.
or react.
Yep.
What they're going to do is take stock and go, okay, how do we move forward from this?
Yeah. So again, I go, that doesn't mean they're not going to be hurt by it or not going to be affected by it or it's not going to be painful for them, but they are going to look at it as, okay, we need to move forward from this and learn from it and do something different. So I think is the probably the biggest benefit a business gets.
Okay, so number one, learning from failure, and probably the most important from that list.
The second one is actually, if you don't have a growth mindset, if you have a fixed mindset, the amount of time you spend being hurt from what happens to you is a huge amount of time, energy, resource that you're throwing away.
So we're losing time, losing energy. It's costing us to be caught in this fixed mindset loop of the world's against us type mentality.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the third one, I guess, is if everybody in your organisation's got a fixed mindset, it becomes draining. So you're going to start losing talent. Actually,
it's not going to be an enjoyable place to work.
It's not. Well, particularly for creative and engaged and growth mindset people, they're going to
people for the future.
Yeah. So they're going to either, if you've got a small number of those surrounded by largely fixed mindset, they're going to drift away, or they're going to be affected by it. Now, one of the things that I've seen in the past is that if you put even a strong growth mindset person in a very fixed mindset environment, they will start to become fixed in their views. They will start to adopt the views and the perceptions and the experiences of the group.
Well, they're kind of giving up, aren't they? Because the battle's too hard.
Yeah, partly that, and partly there's some groupthink going on. Because actually, we all have this ability to. It's like we prize social cohesion and group cohesion over individual identity and individual belief. We're programmed to be part of the group and work with the group. So if everybody else around you is going, it's going to be bad, eventually you start acting and talking in a way that's going to be bad. By allowing a fixed mindset to be the predominant mindset, actually what you're doing is taking all the people who've got other mindsets and pulling them into it. In the same way as actually if you've got a growth mindset, it becomes very hard for somebody with a total fixed mindset to feel comfortable with that environment, because they will be sitting there going, oh, it's all terrible. And the group will be going, well, hang on a minute, it's not all terrible. We can learn from this and we can explore that and we could try and do it differently next time here. And eventually the group will kind of just bring them along a journey that says, look, you can't just look at everything as being bad all the time. It doesn't help.
Okay. So there's clear benefits to an organisation, to businesses, to have a growth mindset, but there are also some areas where a fixed mindset would really help in terms of the health and safety example you described earlier. But if I want a growth mindset organisation, how do I go about creating that?
So I think start with thinking about, as a business, what your metrics are, what your measures are. So, can people fail? Can people get things wrong? And I don't mean, catastrophic failure. I mean, actually, if I make a mistake, do the metrics, do the rewards, does the system, the processes penalise that? Or does it acknowledge that that's a learning experience? Because guess what? If your whole culture and all your processes basically set it up that it's wrong to make mistakes and people shouldn't fail, actually you're growing the fixed mindset. You're not growing, you're not developing a growth mindset. Think about the way managers ask questions and coach, and think about how that gets reflected in the organisational culture. So let me give you an example here. When something happens, is your organisational first question, why did that happen? Or is your first question, what can we learn from that?
Okay.
Why did that happen is very much a fixed mindset. It's about things are wrong and they are bad. Now, that isn't to say you might not need to ask that question at some point in the process. But if that's your starting point, you're sending out the message of fixed mindset behaviours, mistakes are bad. If you send out the message that says, okay, here's a learning experience, what can we take from this that helps us? You're sending out a very different message to people. So you're saying to people, mistakes are fine. Things that go wrong are fine as long as we grow from it. as long as we learn from it, as long as we can incorporate that into our future behaviour, then that's great.
So leaders have a really important part to play in this
Yes.
growth mindset culture, because if they react in a way which is, what's gone wrong, why has this happened, as opposed to, okay, so what are we going to learn from this? What are we going to take forward from this? How are we going to move things forward?
And I think for me it plays out in two sides. One is how I react as a leader. So how do I engage with people about these things? What messages am I sending out, both in terms of the way I communicate across the organisation and the way I communicate individually? But the other side to that is, what am I measuring? Am I measuring fixed behaviours? Again, you think of a sales organisation. Am I measuring how much you got wrong? Am I getting you to get the lowest possible number of lost sales? Or am I encouraging you to go, I want to celebrate everyone we qualified out early so we can understand and learn from the deals we're never going to win?
Okay.
So if I'm penalising my sales force every time they lose a deal, I am saying losing is bad, I'm sending out a fixed mindset message, and I'm encouraging them not to lose deals. Well, guess what happens if you say you can't lose any deals? You don't go for any, you might not win.
So you learn nothing.
So you learn nothing, you don't grow as an organisation, and you probably don't go for that many either. So you're actually limiting your exposure as a sales force. And the same is true in manufacturing. If you're not learning from mistakes on the shop floor or the manufacturing process, how are you going to improve it? If you're saying we cannot fail, you are creating an environment that is so safe that you're now actually pushing it. So you're never going to push your machines that little bit further. You're never going to be that little bit leaner. You're going to create an environment where everything is just safe and nice.
So if we're creating this growth mindset culture, it's really about starting with that key question, what are we going to learn from this? What will we learn from this?
Yes. How can I use whatever feedback I got from this thing, whether it's good, bad or indifferent, to help me do it better or be different or be better in the future?
And that question is irrelevant of level. That can come from anybody in the organisation, but carries the most weight from the leadership, from the managers and leaders. If they start with okay, so what are we going to learn from this? Exploring some of the whys around the failure and where it actually happened, why it happened, all of those elements, but fundamentally, what can we learn from this?
Absolutely. For every scenario, whether that scenario is right now, whether that's somebody talking about the past, what is it that we take from this that we use to be better in the future?
Okay, Paul, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next time on The Question Is...
So raising your awareness to the way that you're thinking starts to raise your awareness to perhaps some of the habits that you've formed that are driving the actions that you're taking, that then give us a chance to say, okay, maybe we've got to break that one, change that one, ask some different questions that might drive some different results.
Thinking Focus works with teams and business units in organizations around the world, helping them achieve breakthroughs by enabling them to think differently. To find out more about our work and how we could help your organization, go to www.thinkingfocus.com.